We're joined now by First Vice President of the European Parliament and MEP for Midlands North West, Mairead McGuinness. Mairead, is chlorothalonil going to be banned?
Certainly it looks like that is the direction of travel. Remember, this decision is not made by politicians. It is made on the foot of scientific evidence and new research, which points to concerns around a number of agrochemicals, but this one in particular. And the committee that make this decision, which is based on a commission proposal, come from the member states. So they're experts in this area. So I think we have to bow to the scientific expertise that is questioning this particular chemical. I know that cereal farmers will find it very difficult to cope if this is taken off the marketplace, but there were concerns around aquatic life and indeed human health concerns. So the decision will be taken shortly. It will have implications if the product is banned, but you probably are aware that on a number of agrochemicals, there is a tightening up of relicensing or indeed authorization procedures.
Oh, when will it be banned, Mairead?
Well, we don't know the exact date, but I know that by this month we will know the fate of that particular chemical. I think it speaks to a wider issue because we had the glyphosate debate, as you know, very political debate in the Parliament, and the licence for glyphosate has been renewed by 5 years rather than 15 years because of that political pressure. Increasingly, when it comes to agrochemicals, we talk about sustainable use. And in some cases, based on new evidence, there is a decision to withdraw chemicals from the marketplace. And I think that's prudent if there is evidence to suggest that there are problems. I think where it gets tricky is for farmers in Ireland, for example, who need a range, as they say, tools to work with so that they can have decent yields when prices are particularly low. And I think it calls for organisations like Teagasc, public sector research and innovation to come forward with new ways of tackling these diseases. The chemical companies are doing that, and there certainly is, if you like, a much more strict evaluation of chemicals today. And perhaps that's no bad thing, because as we test our water, we do that more diligently. We are finding agrochemicals entering the water. That's costly to extract them, and we don't want them in our water supplies. So I think it's a combination of understanding the needs of agriculture, but also understanding the wider environmental concerns.
As you mentioned there, Mairead, there's huge dependence on chlorothalonil, particularly in Ireland. Will there be a use-up period if it is banned?
Usually there is, if it comes to a ban, that there is a time because there's stocks in store, but that is only a lifeline for a certain period of time. We grow grain ourselves, so I'm aware of this dilemma for grain farmers, but there have been other products in the past that were used and then were taken off the marketplace. This is perhaps another step along this path. And I think what we need to look at is, I was interested in the Teagasc researcher very clearly identifying the yield losses and the difficulties for farmers, but that needs to be balanced with the scientific evaluation of the cost to the environment or indeed farmers' health from not that particular product, but indeed other products. And when I talk to grain farmers, we have made huge strides in terms of training for operators, wearing the proper equipment. I recall when my father would use agrochemicals and he would not wear a mask or would not protect himself. So I think that farmers, particularly contractors and tillage farmers, are very aware that the products they're dealing with, need to be treated with the respect because they can have negative impacts. And that's why the training and the regulation and now the more rigorous assessment of agrochemicals is just part of that process.
Mairead, is there a health risk? You're out there at the forefront on this, looking at the studies, looking at the research, the evidence. Is there a health risk and where does it lie?
Well, what the Commission have said is there is a risk. That's why they don't want this to be relicensed. It's around human health issues and aquatic life in particular. So if this chemical gets into the water, it has very bad impacts on life in the water, fish life, etc. And if you look at, I'm sure many of your viewers will be able to Google this, but you find in Ireland where they are detecting traces of chemicals in the water systems. Farmers don't want that. and therefore we are adhering to wider buffer strips and everything to do with safe and sustainable use. So we have to reduce the level of risk of it entering the waterway. And of course, for those who operate, these chemicals need to be handled with great care. But on that score, I think Ireland perhaps is leading the way on that, because when I talk to colleagues from other member states, they don't seem to have the same rigour around the gear that tillage farmers would wear. But I think it's very prudent for people to protect themselves.
But Mairead, you're saying about Ireland leading the way on it and highlighting the dependency of the Irish tillage sector in particular on chlorothalonil. Is it possible that Ireland could put forward a case for some kind of special dispensation? Ireland, the UK, Belgium, very dependent on this fungicide.
I know what's interesting, if you look at some of the reports and research, there's a suggestion that chemicals react differently in different soils, and that perhaps an overarching decision on a chemical may not be appropriate. But that would be down to the scientists in Ireland and the experts to come up with an evaluation that says this product can be used safely in Ireland. If they can't do that, then it's very unlikely that they will go to committee and reject the proposal to ban this product. So I think we have to be sensitive to the evidence, and those who have the expertise in this area, if they really believe that this product can be used safely in Ireland and is necessary, then to put forward that particular case. I'm not so sure whether in a situation where there's a lot of publicity around a chemical being banned at EU level and we continue to use it, whether that might have consequences. But it certainly is an issue that we need to discuss openly. And I know for a lot of tillage farmers, the margins are very tight. They've had difficult years. The idea of not having these particular chemicals to use would have consequences, as your experts have said. Nonetheless, the balance for the Commission and indeed the experts around the table, which will include an Irish expert, if this product is banned, they take into account all of the details or new evidence that's come forward.
Mairead, we're out of time. Thank you very much, and we'll be watching very closely on any developments.